give us your outlook for Golden Week travel for Chinese people in the upcoming weeks.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. And as you say, we're looking into China, where we've seen the first recovery. You just mentioned how badly the hospitality industry has been affected. And Four Seasons is no exception. We've seen quite a shock to the system with at some point 80+% of our portfolio of hotels closed. It started in Asia, mainland China, though that's where we've seen the recovery start first. At this stage, we're operating in all locations where we have hotels in China and in fact in Asia currently, with just one exception. And that recovery has been fairly solid. We're careful with that. And obviously, we've seen what can happen very quickly, as in Beijing just a few weeks ago. But generally, the recovery in China has looked fairly well. And we're well prepared for it. We, needless to say, when business came down and when we were ahead, we needed to review processes, product very, very quickly. We did so. We launched Lead with Care, a program that focuses on our business from a health and safety perspective. And we fairly early on engaged with Johns Hopkins Medicine International in a consulting agreement, and they inform us as the pandemic evolves our decisions on health and safety.
So what is currently your occupancy rate in your hotels across China? Where do you see the biggest improvements and perhaps the regions that are still lagging?
Very strong, for instance, has Hangzhou been performing. It's a drive-to market, very much domestically reachable from Shanghai and other significant cities surrounding it. But we've seen fairly strong business in China all across. July well in the 60s and 70s, typically selling out over the weekends. In fact, again, going back to Hangzhou, we beat last year's numbers, which is great to see, but obviously as compared to the overall scenario, still more the exception than the rule, unfortunately.
Rainer, what do you do then in markets where there isn't that robust resumption of domestic travel and tourism like you see in China? For example, Hong Kong, I suppose to a certain extent, where you are in Singapore as well, there's only so many staycations that residents can take.
You're right. In markets where domestic demand can't really drive to the extent that it would be necessary to sustain the business, again, while we're open, but early on, and even at this stage, we've looked very much as all measures as it relates to cost containment. We've looked at productivity ways. It's very much about communication in our case. As you may be familiar, Four Seasons, we're a management company. We're working through the evolution of this pandemic very closely with our ownership partners in the respective markets, see that we get alignment there. We've got a very strong business model, and we know we can work through this, but planning together while maintaining our very people-centric position. Needless to say, that's what our business is all about, has been key.
What about elsewhere? Where are you seeing sort of bright spots and the potential for a quicker than expected recovery?
We've seen fairly strong business in Seoul and South Korea, again, particularly now July, August, the summer months. We've seen altogether very good demand with rare exceptions on the restaurant front. Again, a number of our restaurants delivering on last year's levels, in a few instances, even increasing or doing even stronger business. But ultimately, where we've been positively surprised is in our private retreats business. We offer in a number of our resorts, be that in Thailand, in Koh Samui and Chiang Mai, be that in the Maldives, but even in urban regions like Kuala Lumpur, like Kyoto, we offer private retreat experiences with all the Four Seasons service, but obviously with a bit more space. In many instances, large outdoor spaces. That clearly has helped us.
What's your outlook for the Macau market, given that we are going to see that tourism visas resuming from the mainland and we're headed towards the Golden Week holiday?
We're reasonably optimistic, as you say, with the opening to Zhuhai, to Guangdong province, and then hopefully into September to all of China. These are the feeder markets there. And to that extent, Macau is getting ready and ramping up. But even beyond Macau, again, with lead, with care, with a greater use of technology, where we've seen strong gains is with the use of our technological applications, be that the Four Seasons app, be that Four Seasons chat, where we communicate with our customers in well over 100 languages, all powered by Four Seasons people. So not a chatbot, that human connection stays very important for us. And so interacting, communicating with our customers that way has proven very effective and helps us, again, step by step and with a very different trajectory, but across our portfolio altogether.
Beyond room occupancy, what are you doing in terms of planning for perhaps fundamental behavior changes coming from your customers in terms of especially those events such as weddings, conferences that hotels in the past hosted and made revenue out of?
Right, it's a very important revenue stream. And again, we've seen in certain locations in China fairly strong demand already. And it became evident very quickly that the recovery will look differently wherever we are. We're looking at the learnings in Asia and try to apply them elsewhere, be that in the EMEA, in the Europe region, in the Americas. But again, well understanding that it looks a little differently wherever we are. To the extent that we've adapted, again, clearly contactless service through these apps, through chat, the abilities to check in without having to be in direct contact with any of our team members. If you do so, certainly with the right distance measures that we have in place and all the efforts, obviously, that you would expect. But we've seen that work quite well for us. And we're very focused that while ultimately service looks a little differently, but that it feels the same, that human connectivity in whatever form and shape continues to be very important for us in the luxury hotel business.
Do you have a contingency plan for your business in Hong Kong? Do you have expectations that there'll be a meaningful recovery if the political tensions continue and if visitor numbers don't recover even once borders and travel restrictions are lifted?
Cross-border travel very clearly is what Hong Kong, similarly a city-state like Singapore, greatly depends on. We did see just a few weeks ago, even with limited ability to travel into Hong Kong, actually a fairly nice recovery. And we're optimistic that once travel, particularly from China, but hopefully other travel bubbles form, and that travelers will continue to come back to Hong Kong. But to the point that you made earlier, our dependence on the restaurant business, which we saw in between, had actually fared fairly strongly, and that dependence is significant, no doubt.